Well, it's Australia Day here in England. It's not in Australia, it's one day ahead, but we thought we should mark the occasion by talking to a big name from Australian cricket. And we have got a big name for you. We've got the one and only Mr. Michael Bevan. Michael, welcome along to 98 Not Out. How are you doing?
Good, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Looks nice and sunny down there. Is it still the height of summer?
Australia Day yesterday was perfect. It was about 30, 33 degrees, something like that. Summer hasn't been great in Aussie. I'm in Manly, so it's a lovely place to be during summer, but it hasn't really eventuated, I suppose. So what do you call it? An English summer.
Yeah, well, here it doesn't matter whether it's summer, winter, whatever. With all this lockdown, we're stuck indoors, and
Yeah, and that's still going on, right?
it's worse than ever. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Kids can't go to school. People can't go to work. Pubs are shut.
Oh, that's a shot, yeah.
Oh, that's not good to hear. Well, I mean, it's been fortunate for us. We've been lucky. So, touch wood. We wouldn't want to get to the stage that you guys were at, but hopefully you can turn it around shortly.
Hopefully. Well, the vaccine, they're rolling the vaccines out now. So hopefully they'll get everyone vaccinated and then be able to, that'll be the way out of it. So a little bird tells me that the reputation of 98 Not Out has filtered all the way down to Australia, and word's getting out amongst all you Australian cricket fans down there.
It's big in Australia. I'm sure you would have. I'm sure you would be keeping an eye on all the viewer numbers globally.
It is incredible. I mean, we get great guys like yourselves on, and the audience just loves it and really laps it up. And we've got Australia, we've got a bunch of nutcases in South Africa that follow us closely and interact on the social media, and it's really good to reach out to everyone, not just in our local area, but all the ways around the world. So let's just start with a bit of history, and the history that you made in the baggy green and in the ODIs and all the rest of it. So just let's go back. So I was just looking at your early life, and cricket probably wasn't the sort of the natural thing from where you were growing up as a youngster.
Well, I think look, I'm not sure about cricket, but I mean, I was definitely a sportsman, sports person. School-wise, I always sort of struggled through, made a bit of an effort, but I was always I always wanted to play sport for a living. So for me, the things that I did were athletics, soccer, football for you guys, and cricket. And I don't know, so around sort of 14 or 15, I had to sort of make the decision about which direction I wanted to go. And I suppose at that time, cricket was the largest sort of sport in Australia, and I didn't really see sort of too many avenues for the other two directly. And so, I just pursued cricket, and I was from Canberra, which didn't have a state team. And I actually ended up being the first Canberra player to play for Australia. And so I was fortunate enough that I sort of made my way through the under 17s and 19s and made the Australian teams for those after the carnivals, and sort of got recognised, and then was chosen for the Cricket Academy, the second year intake in Adelaide.
Is it a fairly easy pathway in Australia? Over here, for youngsters trying to get anywhere near first-class cricket, there's a whole load of hoops to jump through in different grades, and under 17 this, under 19 that, and it's county, school, whatever. It's a long way to getting to county and national status. It appears, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it appears more straightforward in Australia?
Potentially, I think maybe. I mean, it's always hard work. It's always competitive. But I think the thing that I noticed in England, because I went over and played league cricket, predominantly up north around Manchester, was that sort of those small clubs that have all the professionals or overseas professionals, they sort of then feed into the county twos, and then from the twos to the ones. And so and the team I played for, it had probably one or two good cricketers and a couple of and the rest were pretty ordinary. I hope none of them are watching. But so it's I think the identification system is maybe a little tougher in England because you've got all these smaller areas and games that of differing standards. So it may be a little bit harder to identify sort of the good guys coming through maybe in England. I'm not sure.
Well, you did break through and pulled on the Australian jersey. And according to my notes, 18 Test matches and 232 ODIs. What was the? Why do you think you were more successful in ODI cricket than Test cricket in your career?
Oh, a couple of reasons. I think one, the selectors didn't want to pick me for tests, so that's always a bit of an impediment. And I didn't score any runs. That's another impediment. So I had those two things working against me. I still was very unlucky. No, it was kind of weird because there was an article I think done on me a couple of months ago, and it was sort of about a tortured genius, and it was kind of weird because in first class cricket, well, let me go back and say the major reasons why I didn't play more Test cricket was because it was perceived I had a short ball issue and I didn't score any runs. But look, I played a lot of first class cricket where they have short balls. You could still allowed to bowl 2 short balls, and I averaged 60 for New South Wales. So, look, for me, it was a bit of an eye opener and a bit of a journey playing Test cricket, and just sort of, I suppose, the analogy I used was I was probably a little bit similar to a golfer who got the yips with the putting or something like that, except I kind of got it with the short ball. And I made it into an issue that it wasn't or shouldn't have been. And it was something that sort of stayed with me throughout my career. And I always had to overcome that hurdle of, he's a one-day player and he can't play the short ball. And look, I could have got picked for Australia the back end of my career on any number of years, but because the Australian team was so strong, there were just other guys to choose from. And I remember sitting down for a luncheon once with, I think Alan Lamb was invited. And so he was sitting next to me and he wasn't shy in bringing up the short ball. He said, "Oh, short ball today." And I kind of just quipped back and I said, well, look, if I had been playing for England at that time, I probably would have played 60 tests. So I don't, so I think there are a number of reasons, but I sort of went on my own journey and it wasn't the journey I thought I would go on. I was hoping and thought that I would play 100 tests. So anyway, yeah.
We had Alan Lamb on the show last year, and he's not shy in coming forward, is he?
Correct.
And yeah, loves to tell you about how he faced Malcolm Marshall and Michael Holding and those guys.
Well, I mean, he was a great player and he was a great player against quicks. And he was one of my favourites, in terms of watching for England. You can chuck Ian Botham in that category. And, they're the sort of guys and Gower that I had memories of growing up as a young cricketer, and this huge rivalry between Australia and England. And look, I played 18 tests, but I was fortunate enough I was sort of involved with a couple of Ashes series as well. So that was nice.
You got an Ashes ton, didn't you?
I don't think I got an Ashes ton. No, I didn't get any ton. I got 87. My highest was 87, and I got close. I got a couple of 80s, and every time I got to 80, Glenn McGrath was at the other end, and so I was no chance. I was no chance.
Yeah, but then Glenn McGrath was at the other end for that famous last ball win against the West Indies, wasn't he? So, he's not all bad. He can hold a bat.
He can hold it. He just can't hit a ball. No. Look, his pitch wasn't strongest batsman going around. Yes, in the last it was the last over where Glenn came in sort of for that sort of one-day game that I was known for in terms of hitting the 4 off the last ball. And of course, one of the things I had to do, I mishit one and scamped through for a single early on in the over, and then sort of mid-over I had Pidge on the other side and had to sort of work out how we were going to get back the other end to try and finish the job. But fortunately, he did catch a little bit of it, got an edge onto his pad, and it just fell out nicely for us to get through. So, yeah, Glenn plays his part in that day for sure.
Any words with Roger Harper after that game? I know he high-fived you, didn't he, at the end of that, after the little Court and Bold incident?
It was strange because the only angle that you could see that he actually dropped it was my angle, and I was just adamant that there was no way you could call that a catch, and no one else could really see it because of his position. So, fortunately, the cameras picked it up. Yeah, look, I mean, you have so many instances in cricket where you have verbal disagreements or things that happen, and look, I don't know if the game's changed now. I do watch a little bit of it, but for me, and from my perspective, look, we didn't walk when I was playing because you'd get a lot of bad decisions as well. And so, look, there were times where probably everyone knew you were out, and you knew you were out, and no one was happy except the batsman, and you just sort of got on with it. And so, there's lots of altercations throughout the game of cricket, and most occasions you just kind of move on.
Speaking of Glenn McGrath,
that was a pretty diplomatic answer, wasn't it?
We could have gone on to talk about Stuart Broad, couldn't we? Just speaking of Glenn McGrath, has he made it back to Sydney? Because last I heard, he was stuck in Mumbai, working on he was covering the recent series for Indian TV, and then when it was all over, he couldn't get a flight back down to Sydney, and when everyone else was packing their bags and heading to the airport, he was stuck in the hotel. So I was wondering if
I'm not sure I heard that story, but I do know that he during Sydney Test and the Jane McGrath Day, McGrath Foundation, which is generally the third day of that test. I didn't get out there, but I was pretty sure he's sort of floating around and doing his stuff for that. So I'd assume he's back in Oz now. I think he might have been back for a little while, but hey, I'm not 100% sure.
We were trying to persuade him to come on the show, but you've beaten him to it, so we'll keep nagging away. I mean, we'll get him eventually.
Well, it sounds like you're going to get everyone eventually.
We don't care. We'll ask everyone. What's your sort of favourite? Have you got a moment that sticks out from your international career?
Yeah, look, I have a couple. I mean, I feel very fortunate, and from a team perspective, my first Test series in Pakistan, being awarded the baggy green, playing with some of my childhood heroes and Shield heroes, and then getting to play with them up in the flesh, and against a Pakistan team that had Akram Yunus, Mushtaq Ahmed. So that was my first Test series. So that'll always be a great memory. From a team perspective, it's very hard to go past the '99 World Cup in England, where we had a few little issues moving into the tournament, lost the first two matches. And if you can recall, older diehard cricket fanatics will remember, I think, and I don't think they do it anymore, but there was the Super Sixes for the first time that year, and it sort of threw everything out. And so we'd lost two and found that for us to actually win the World Cup from that point in time, we had to win 7 matches in a row. And the team I'd played for, we'd only ever won 3 in a row up to that point. So to win a World Cup under those circumstances was a real memory. And of course, some of the games throughout that series for us were amazing matches and great memories. So from a team perspective, I always have those. From an individual perspective, I guess I always have maybe slightly different memories to what I'm remembered for in terms of the last ball 4. Yes, that's a huge memory. That's what I'm known for, and that's what everyone talks about, remembers me for. But probably a couple of matches that I felt that I hit them better or the circumstances were tougher. One was in Melbourne against New Zealand at the MCG. I think they scored about 250, and we were, I don't know if it was six. It sounds ridiculous. 6 for 40. I don't know if it could have been that bad, but it was pretty dire. But we had to win that match to make the finals, which we in Australia we do. So I was happy that innings. There was another innings where we were chasing 300 in South Africa against a really strong South African bowling attack that I was really happy with the way I played. But probably pound for pound, the best I ever hit them in a one-day match was a match that probably more people from the subcontinent recall, but it was an Asia 11 versus a World 11. And it kind of happened on the way, for me, on the way to South Africa. And we arrived there the night before. We didn't train. We didn't sort of warm up. We just got on. It was a real flat wicket, and they'd stacked their team with spinners, and they scored 330. And we were 2 for 7 or something like that. And I got 180 off 130 deliveries. And we ended up tying the match. And I think we would have won it if not for Andy Caddick not sliding his bat right at the end. So from my perspective, that was probably pound for pound the best I ever hit them in one-day cricket.
We'll have to post the link. That must be on YouTube. We'll post the link, and people can go and have a look and see for themselves. And then you had a bit of time in England, like you mentioned. What are the differences that you found personally between playing in England and playing in Australia?
Well, look, I mean, I always enjoyed my time playing in England. I played a couple of years in league cricket. I played for a couple of counties, and it was all really enjoyable. It wasn't easy work because you would play, inevitably, you'd play 5 days out of 7. And so that was kind of the difficult aspect. At the start of every season, it was a real challenge for the batsmen early season in England with the ball, the wet weather, ball seaming around, hard to hit through from an Aussie perspective. But I of course was the second pro only in Yorkshire after Tendulkar. So look, I've had really good memories of England. Really enjoyed my time. I was fortunate as a young player to have the opportunity to have 2 seasons and work on my game in different conditions and different environments. So no, I'll always have great memories of playing in England for sure.
We've had a few Aussie greats come through wearing the Essex shirt. I mean, Sidler's the latest. Zamps recently. Zamps did.
Easy Brentwood boy.
Yeah. And then going back, AB in the 80s, often seen around a few nightclubs as well.
They used to say that about cricketers, funnily enough.
No more. Not with social media.
Oh, yeah.
Ask Ben Stokes.
That sort of stuff changed as I was coming through.
Yeah, that's right. Let's come up to date a little bit. There's a couple of things I want to talk to you about. One of them, though, is your website, which I've been looking at today, battingmentor.com. And look, my 16-year-old son has been looking at it. I don't know if you can see that.
Can't see that. Yeah, no.
Can't see that, but I've got sheets of notes. I told him go and look at it, and he's made all these notes from looking at the website. So tell us about Batting Mentor. Yeah,
well, look, it's an online batting mentoring service that I've recently just launched, and I suppose one of the reasons why I launched it was I think maybe the cricket world and maybe cricketers are ready for the online sort of stuff at the moment. We've sort of got a lot of cover drives and pull shots sweep shots being played on YouTube, etc. And there's a lot of good information out there, but that's not really the space that the Batting Mentor and the services and the products I provide. I mean, the service is based on my career, and I try and share with cricketers either through one-on-ones or through group weekly live streams, the principles that I use to perform. So not so much to play a cover drive, but, you know, the types of mindset you need, the game plans you need, what goals you should be setting, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm sort of the troubleshooter, or the guy that comes in if players are unsure about how to improve, or, you know, they're getting stuck in the 20s or 30s and don't now know how to score big hundreds, or they're not making the teams that they want to make, or they want to get out of a run of form. So I'm kind of sharing all my principles and secrets with them live, either one-on-one or in group sessions, about, you know, their approach, how they should approach it, what they should be looking at, and really taking a bit more of a sort of a holistic approach around why and how people, you know, really score more runs in cricket, I guess.
When you were playing, who was? I've not asked this question for a while. I used to make sure I asked that to everyone, but so it's a two-headed question. It's one, who was your greatest teammate that maybe you learnt the most from, or you just thought, wow, this guy's a legend, and who was the most formidable opponent?
That's a really good question, and I think a couple of things on that is that sort of Steve Waugh went through something similar that I went through in his Test career, and he came out the other side as a stronger player, and he was always very, very supportive and encouraging and adamant that you had to be really honest with yourself in terms of what's going on with your game and what you need to do. And so that was a sort of a key cornerstone of what I got off Steve. Again, very fortunate to be a part of the Australian cricket side, which was a great cricket side, which had a lot of great mentors, a lot of great leaders that I could absorb information off. And it was a little bit like that with when I first started playing cricket. I first started playing, even though I was from Canberra, I started playing for New South Wales. It's the biggest and the most successful state in Australia. So we had a history of winning. And what you tend to find is when you're in good teams, your learning curve becomes a lot quicker because your fellow teammates are interested in how you're doing. They've got a lot of good information. So I've always learnt the most out of all the good teams I've really played for. In terms of the most formidable opponent, well, this is strange. And this is what I mean by being in form or out of form, and how I struggled throughout my career and how I worked out how to get around it. So I played 18 tests, but I effectively played 2 test series against England, 1 against Pakistan and 1 against the West Indies. Now, I averaged 10 against England in 6 tests, and I averaged 60 against Pakistan, and I averaged 50 against the West Indies, who arguably had stronger attacks. And so the difference was, against those teams, the teams West Indies and Pakistan, I was in form. Against England, I was out of form. So I've always found that it actually doesn't matter who you're playing against. If you're in form and you've got control of your game, everything seems a lot easier than if you're playing someone out of form who could be a lot less of a quality bowler. So that's what I've always found. So my formidable opponents in Test cricket were England. In one-day cricket, I suppose, in terms of scoring rates and strike rates and trying to rotate the strike, one of the bowlers I really struggled with was a guy called Sakleen Mushtaq.
Oh yeah,
and he was just. I just found him really difficult. He just sort of bowled quick, fired him in at my stumps, set the right fields, and so he was one of the guys that I really struggled to rotate and score off in my one-day game.
You've named some pretty, or you've alluded to some pretty quality bowlers there. You know, there's Wasim Wakar. I assume the West Indies squad was probably Ambrose and Walsh, probably still around at that time. Saki, obviously. is there an element, and I guess thinking about your mentoring now as well, is there an element of um, focusing your way into form? And was there, you know, your struggles against England, was that something maybe to do with thinking these are lesser bowlers, I don't have to concentrate as much, maybe not consciously but subconsciously?
No. It was kind of more that I didn't know enough about my game and I didn't know enough about my mindset. Um, and I wasn't in great. I was putting a lot of pressure on myself when I was playing against England, um, and I wasn't confident. And so for me, it was kind of more of a mindset during those series. It wasn't quite that I was taking them for granted. It was just I didn't have the consistency in my game at that point in time. And so, you know, one of the things that I, you know, help cricketers learn, batsmen learn, is that um, what is mindset and how does it relate to practice in matches, walking to the crease, kind of specific, so they're not floundering. So they're saying, like, I've been through it all, so I say this is what you need to do to, you know, to improve your confidence, or to get in a better frame of mind, or to be ready to go when you play a match. And so they're all sort of the experiences that I had in my career that I've learned how to deal with, that I can impart. And so I guess the idea is, rather than players, which I did, I mean, I spent from the age when I got selected for Australia, 24 to 27, but probably earlier than that, I spent the better part of the first 7 years of my professional career with real swings in performance. And then the back end of my career, I didn't have those swings. I sort of went down a little bit and then up, and a little bit and then up. And so that was a real learning experience for me. And so one thing I feel as though I can help cricketers with, and batsmen with, is how to ensure that their consistency is always there. You know, and just help them really with their game plans and self-awareness, those types of things. So yeah, that's kind of the space I'm coaching in, and it's because of the principles and the sort of the tips and the secrets that I sort of learnt during my career that not many coaches or not many players have gone through or know about. And so hopefully I can just, you know, if someone's really struggling and really inconsistent, like I was, I can just sort of narrow the learning, you know, really minimise the sort of the down times and maximise the sort of learning curve, I guess.
And
Okay.
Darren mentioned the website earlier. Presumably, obviously websites are available globally, but presumably the mentoring is available globally, is it?
Yeah, battingmentor.com is it's a global service. And I guess with the advent of well, probably the lockdowns and COVID and everyone getting
Yeah.
online and using Zoom and Crowdcast and all like we're doing now, I think we're all just becoming more familiar. It's becoming more of a necessity. But I suppose when I looked at, before I launched and was working out what I would offer, look, as I said, there are a lot of free clips out there on the cover drives and, you know, the hook shots, and it's all pretty good information. And then there's a lot of programs out there that you can buy for, you know, £49 or £99 about, you know, cricket batting programs. But I think one of the things that I wanted to do, I wanted people to have the opportunity to speak with me face to face, like you guys are doing now, and for it to be a more real experience, a more intimate experience, and a more real-time experience. And so, yeah, look, I have a one-on-one mentoring service that'd just be, you know, similar to this, then a group weekly live stream, which would be for 30 minutes. And we just talk about issues that players are going through, what's working, what's not working. And I don't feel as though I want to spend every week with them. I think my service is more when they don't know what to do to improve their game, or they're struggling to implement the cover drive in their game. Then I can talk to them about not the technique of the cover drive, but why they're not introducing it into the game as they would like. So so it is global. It's very intimate. They'll, cricketers will get access to me every week. They'll get my knowledge on and my experience and all the things that I went through to improve my game, and both good and bad. So, they get all the secrets that I used in one-day cricket, but they get all my learning experience that I had in Test cricket as well, and both are very similarly important.
Completely changing the subject. Completely. I've got 2 words for you. Hammerhead.
I love Hammerhead in Australia and presumably in England as well.
So that was the Masked Singer is wildly popular in this country. The second series has just started, and because no one can go out and there's nothing else to do, everyone is watching it and everyone is hooked.
Of course, why else would you watch it?
Well, we haven't had any Test cricketers on there as yet, but a certain M. Bevan was the Hammerhead, I believe, in the Australian version.
Yeah, it was a slow period for me in Manly. I was sitting at home and I got the offer and I thought, hey, let's just dress up as a shark and try and sing on national TV in front of, because there was actually no judges because of COVID in Melbourne at that time. I was actually I think I would have preferred to have sung in front of a couple of hundred people in terms of the audience, but it was only the 4 judges. So here I am sort of singing in front of 4 judges on an empty stage that they're sort of trying to make look real, beautiful. So it was kind of it's a confronting experience because you're out of your comfort zone, and so it's something that you don't want to do too often, for sure.
It looked like good fun. I've watched it on YouTube, and you looked like you were enjoying yourself, and the judges seem to appreciate your efforts. And I've heard from other people that you don't mind getting on stage and singing a song. So,
look, I guess, I mean, that was actually funnily enough, that was the second reality singing TV show that I've done since I finished my career. But I would probably, funnily enough, I would only do those ones, because I know I can sing a little bit. So I'm more comfortable doing it. Whereas if someone said, look, go on Dancing with the Stars or I'm a Celebrity, get me out of here. I mean, I just would have I couldn't and wouldn't make the decision to do those things. And most people have a fear of singing or getting on stage, but I know I can handle it all right and I know I can get away with it. So I'm probably more likely to do something like that.
Sounds like a collaboration with Mark Butchers in The Reckoning here.
Oh, yeah, I think I know Mark's a bit of a musician and I think he's got a good voice too, hasn't he? And
yeah.
Maybe is it A.B. de Villiers or I think maybe even Steve Smith is
yeah, he gets his guitar out, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think so. So and of course in my era there was a band called Six and Out where Brett Lee played in with a bunch of cricketers. So
yeah.
It happens. I wasn't the first.
Well, listen, it's great to see you still performing, and we'll give this. We'll put the link just down here,
Right,
battingmentor.com, and we'll encourage everyone to go and look at it. But we've got to wrap it up, Michael. It's great of you to give us so much of your time this evening, and fascinating listening to your thoughts and some of your experiences down the years. And are we going to see Hammerhead again?
No, I don't think so. No.
Okay, well, all the way from Australia, Michael Bevan, thank you so much for joining 98 Minutes.